Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Anders.
And I'm Ninnies.
We're here to take care of you. I hope you don't get too tired of hearing me talk at you for the next hour and some change. We've got a pretty promising and exciting match going up today. We have Chexhuman and Kyong. Both of these two runners are set to advance to the bracket stage. We're rounding out the group stage of the tournament, I think tomorrow, right?
I do believe so. I believe the last group stage match is tomorrow.
Yeah, so both of them will be moving on either way, but this will help with some seeding, trying to decide who's going to be where in the bracketed state. Both runners have very comparable personal best times. They're both big glitchy boys, loving those glitches and stuff like that. And so I'm sure that we're going to be in for a really, really fun time. I guess.
Yeah, the crazy thing about the escape is while it isn't all that complicated, there is an insane amount of optimization, movement, and RNG that can create a large variance in times. Each of these rooms, for the majority of them, they're kind of fixed. Like this room, the knight is always going to be over there, but the green guard that was just in the previous room can be moving north, east, west, and depending on how like the rats in later rooms, snakes can be. It's a matter of like half seconds, full seconds, depending on how the players react to these.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There is a decent amount of RNG in this game. A lot of it has to do with the enemies and their movements themselves. Luckily, these runners and most of the runners in the tournament know this game well enough to be able to read that RNG, understand the patterns, and maneuver through it. But this game will throw you some things. You're going to hear us talking a lot about, oh yeah, in this room, these guys just do whatever they want and they have no pattern, and that's because they genuinely have no patterns sometimes. Now we picked up Zelda, so she will no longer telepathically yell at us. But if we were to try and leave with her right now and go somewhere else, there's a chance she would stop us. So we gotta take her to safety, otherwise the whole game can't progress. We've gotten through our first mini boss, the Ball and Chain Guard. first kind of big roadblock around 3 minutes in for us to try and fight that. Both of them getting through that beautifully and heading back up through the dungeon of the escape portion.
Yeah, it's very useful that we're rescuing Zelda here. There's something that we're going to be doing a lot in this, and some categories allow this in NMG. Specifically, there's one that allows save and quitting, but all of these restricted major glitches categories allow saving and quitting. By rescuing Zelda, it allows us to get the Sanctuary to teleport to instead of just Link's Hat.
Yeah, the Sanctuary, getting that, when we get there, we'll explain a little bit more about that, but part of the whole save and quit phenomenon, like it's like this magical cool thing. Yeah, you get to save and quit and then go right back in. We've added that into this.
Magical.
If we, it is pretty cool, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I just teleported. That's so cool.
What's really good about it is just the ability to save your run. There will be some of these clips that we're going to do that you can inadvertently soft lock, and without the ability to save and quit, that's just your run.
Or hard lock, and then that's your run plus 15 minutes of recovered time, which is not fun. We see Chex taking a little bit of rat damage from those meanies, but still getting through all right. Another thing is that, and we'll try and point these out when they do happen, we would not be able to technically complete this run without save and quit, because some of the routing requires us to go through doors and exit doors that do not exist in some scenarios. And one thing that I've always found really interesting as I watch more All Dungeons Restricted Major Glitches and other major glitch runs is that they tell us that walls are really just suggestions. Nothing can stop you in a Restricted Major Glitches run if you are putting your mind to it.
Oh yeah, a lot of the corners in this speed run are just additional doors.
So they both get through escape beautifully. Just get to mash through all this text with this priest telling us how great things are and how they're not actually great. And we may, at this point, see them both save and quit. Always a good thing. They're going to restart up at Link's house and head out the door to our first dungeon. Like many major any percent speedruns, we're going to head to Eastern Palace. Eastern Palace is our first real dungeon. We classify in this a dungeon is anything that appears in the ending credits, so we will be doing Aga Tower, we will be doing Ganon's Tower, and all the like there. It looks like Chex is opting not to take the Citrus Glitch, which is a bootless buffer into a wall that we can see on Kyong's screen. He's using the sword to get himself in there. And if done correctly, that can save a little bit of time, just popping you up on that mountain, displacing the camera, and allowing you to enter Eastern. Looks like he's having a little trouble getting into the right notch. But there we go.
So Kyong is showing off something you're going to see a little bit in this run, which is the broken camera. Basically what we're doing is we're teleporting Link way up in the map, but Link maintains his position. So a lot of runners will learn where ledges are that we need to jump off of in order to kind of progress and get to areas that, you know, you can't access without clearing a couple of things, or in the next split coming up, since we don't actually have the power glove, we can't get our way up to Death Mountain. So we have to use this kind of broken camera and these little hops to get around.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing really too exciting about Eastern Palace. The main reason that we are coming here first is because beating Eastern Palace gets us the green pendant, which gets us the boots. There are a lot of things that really make these glitches possible. The boots are a major portion of that. And then thanks to, within like the last year and a half, bombs. A lot of bomb jumps are what really makes this particular speedrun category much more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah, if you've seen an all dungeons restricted major glitches run in the past couple of years and you're like, oh, I don't need to see this again, stick around. You'll find something new, I promise. And if you don't, I'll buy you a drink. It'll be our first date, and we'll fall madly in love.
Well, it depends where you take me.
Oh shoot, that's hard. Social distancing. Are e-dates a thing? Can I
I believe they can.
e-date someone? Like do a little green screen in the background, like you can be at a fancy fresh restaurant and I can be at a Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh my goodness, can you take me to Cabo?
Oh my gosh, it's a date. Um, so we see both runners kind of heading back, doing a little circle around to get this nice little bow. This bow is another really fun thing that we have here. And it allows us to shoot things, as a bow does. Like
oh yeah, there's a nice safety that you might have seen some runners pick up, and it's the silver arrows. That will be coming up also in the next split. It's kind of an intermediary in between doing like the Kiki skip to get us into Palace of Darkness, but the bow is pretty useful. Specifically, like whether or not you get the silvers, you can still do some nice safe damage to Helmasaur, which is the first real gate of this speed run.
Yeah. They make this look very easy. It makes me really sad.
If you are ever interested in this speed run, there is a fantastic tutorial that was put out by our community. !AD_tut in chat will bring Helmasaur bot to give you a link to that written document, as well as some delicious video tutorials done by other people in our wonderful community. So they'll help you understand what is going on and how you can get yourself into learning the wonderful world of Link to the Past speedrunning.
You could also, if you are having trouble remembering, oh gosh, what was the command for that one in a Help a Sword King chat, do RTFM or read the freaking manual, which is how I prefer to remember it. Big shout outs to Apathy Duck Salute in chat there for helping kind of push us along there, along with a bunch of other runners who contributed to that. Now we see both Chex and Kyong collecting boots from an old man named Sahasrala or Salabala. As long as it starts with an S. We got a little
There's going to be a huge gauntlet of clips, so we're going to do our best to narrate what's kind of going on.
I'll shut my mouth. You can take the lead on this.
You got it. So looking at Chex, what he's going to be doing is he's going to be setting up a clip into the wall here, which is going to do another broken camera. From here, he's going to jump across a couple of imaginary ledges, and he's going to land right in front of that door that leads up to Death Mountain. This is what I was talking about earlier, where we need the power gloves in order to access it, but thankfully to this newer version of what we call Death Mountain Ascension, we get to break the camera instead of try to dodge imaginary dead rocks.
Ugh. We have already seen in this tournament, and we will see again, how those dead rocks can just mess you up. So let's hope we don't see that today, just for the sake of our lovely runners. These two runners are they're good friends. They call each other arch rival. I think they're joking. Not quite sure. But we can bet that they're going to have some fun today. I'm being yelled at by chat, so we always know that that's a good idea. Thanks, guys. I love you all too.
All right, so what we're seeing here is Chexhuman is setting up a clip called Kiki Yeet. It's similar to the clip that we might see some of them doing to get into Tower of Hera, but it's by lightly tapping and not quite getting to the exact pixel, which will allow you to get that little toss that like throws Link as opposed to kind of dropping down. Over on Kyong's, you just saw him utilize what I was talking about earlier, which is bomb clips. By moving Link into a specific spot, a lot of these bomb clips involve dashes to either get us positions or to position Link in a way that allows him to get hit by the bomb, pushed into a corner, so that way we can use sword buffers, select buffers, and then buffered inputs either after open menus or after a sword slash to clip through. What's great about this specific clip is that the underworld terrains, like the caves, a lot of them are linked up, and this one just so happens to be linked up right on the same kind of area where Palace of Darkness is. So what you saw is they clipped in, and then Palace of Darkness kind of held that cave state. What's unique about the cave state is that it allows us to utilize keys with an underflow system, which means that you try to open a door, it checks to see if you have a key. Since you don't have a key, it gives you the maximum amount of keys, which allows us to open these small doors. But what we have to do is we have to actually still get the dungeon into its state so we can clear it, get the items inside, and beat the boss and get the crystal. So we have to exit it. So right now we are in a state called Fake Dark World, which if you notice that the pots are actual clay pots and not the skulls. So that is something that can be a warning in some other dungeons, but for Palace of Darkness, it's really not that big of a deal. I'll talk a little bit more about that with Misery Mire.
Yeah, part of the way that this all works is that you have to, when you enter a dungeon, you set the dungeon ID. The dungeon ID is essentially the reward that you get at the end of the dungeon. And we have to set that because when we originally entered through that cave with the mini mold worms, the game still thought we were there. So were we to beat the boss and try and collect our reward, I don't think anyone would like what happens. Not quite.
Yeah, it's unfortunate here Kyong missed the placement of the bomb. It allows us time to talk about it. What Kyong is setting up here is a double pixel perfect, meaning both a bomb and Link need to be on perfect pixels in order to get blasted over and clip through this railing. That allows us to skip 2 small keys, so that way we can utilize 1 small key later on in this dungeon, and we can get the hammer without having to go through that dark room. So it's quite a time save. There's a video that is up that shows that even with, I believe, 30 buffers, it's still a time save rather than going into 2 rooms, collecting 2 small keys, and then getting to the hammer.
I think, yeah. I personally, to tell you a little bit more about myself, I'm just getting into ALttP speedruns. I've been a part of the community more or less for a little over a year. I've just been starting to learn the % route. And that jump is no joke. It's hard. I do want to point out that where we are, yes, it is a little, Apathy Duck is correct, because we get that cave state key, it is even less time, you have less buffers to save time there. It's the whole thing. But I also want to point out that at the point that they are right now, that both runners are going to go into the boss with the number of hearts that they have now. Now, normally, if you would be following the developers' intended route, this would be done with at least 1 to 2 hearts more than they have now. Instead, they're going in with 5 hearts total after a gauntlet of basement rooms with only those scary turtles that just run every which way and do a lot of damage and never drop hearts. Every hit from Helmasaur King takes 2 hearts of damage, so you can only take 2 hits from him before you're in the danger zone, as Chex is now. And Chex makes it through. So I guess it's not as dangerous for some people. It's fine, I'm fine.
Yeah, a nice little tip about this boss is the boss always moves 3 times and then does an attack. There are 2 attacks that it will commonly do. There is a fireball, which blasts in a triangle, and then it will explode in a clockwise. So the first one will explode, and then left and the right, or then the right side and then the left side of it. Kyong unfortunately taking death here.
That off-screen fireball explosion, man, that's
a tough one, because sometimes they can go off-screen and despawn, and so that's basically like, I think what Kyong was kind of thinking about is like, oh, okay, so I only see 1 fireball, the other 2 might have despawned, so that's just really unfortunate.
It looks like one of them did get despawned, you know? I mean, man.
Maybe. I think it didn't go far enough off screen.
Yeah. So the other thing is that another fun fact, which you just actually gave me some hints for next time I try this fight, so thank you. But because we're going in here earlier than intended, we have less abilities than normal. Normally, you'd be coming in here with the Master Sword, which can do damage with slashing to Helmasaur King. In this situation, the Fighter Sword, which is the sword that we have equipped right now, can only do damage with spin attacks, and you can only otherwise damage with arrows. In this situation, we have regular arrows, or with the hammer. I don't want to skate by the fact that Chex just did a really interesting entrance to Tower of Hera, but don't worry that we missed talking about it because he's going to do it again like 5 or 6 times in this run, I swear.
Yeah, that's one of the more common clips. There's 2 versions that allow you to get up there. That's a little bit more, it's faster, but there's a little bit of a danger, seeing as though how you have to kind of buffer out of that, you can accidentally soft lock yourself into the wall in the entrance of Tower of Hera.
So Chex is doing my favorite thing that I'm sure we'll see Kyong do, because Kyong always seems to do it. In this auto-scroller room, the Link to the Past version of an auto-scroller, he's picked up this pot and basically gotten a speed boost by picking up the pot and heading towards the door. And it just looks funny. I just always point it out. By the way, Kyong destroyed Helmasaur King the second go around.
Oh yeah, that fight went really smooth.
It was very nice. I'm always happy to see Helma explode, especially in this category.
You said that you've done no major glitches. Now, what would you say really sucks about Tower?
For me, Tower of Hera, the worst part is probably Moldworm for me. Moldworm is, you see these mini Moldworms here. Imagine that, but big, evil, and a burger. Basically a giant evil worm burger.
So let me tell you what's really great about this category. We get to come here, and we don't have any stronger sword, but we have a hammer. And the hammer will do way more damage to Moldorm, and will completely skip the fast phase that Moldorm gets into after you do a set amount of damage to it. We're going to completely destroy this burger worm.
You know, other than, Helmasaur King being early, I really want to run this category just to show Moldorm who's boss with this hammer. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh yeah, a lot of these light world bosses get completely destroyed, especially Lin Bolas, because by that time we'll also have the fire rod, which makes that fight incredibly quick if you get the right setup in RNG.
Love the fire rod strats for Lanmo. It's always so nice. So now we see, Kyong opting not to do the pot strat. It saves 0 time, so I understand. Oh, never mind, he's doing it. Look how funny that is. So Chex is doing a little bit of a DMD over here, getting his way down Death Mountain, because we do not have a strength upgrade right now. And normally we would need a strength upgrade to be able to get off the mountain, pretty much. So he just kind of glitches his way down, and part of the other reason for that is we can't actually get into Dark World right now without 1 beating Aghanim 1 or 2 beating having a strength upgrade that would allow us normal access. So he just glitched his way down to make sure he stayed in Dark World, heads into the Thieves' Town, and everything's alright.
It's actually kind of funny that you said strength upgrade, because that's one of the main reasons why we're coming to Thieves' Town now. The great thing about this category and how Link to the Past works is that you don't need to have a prerequisite to meet something, i.e. you don't need the Master Sword to get the Tempered Sword, so you don't need the Power Gloves in order to get the Titan's Mitt. So as soon as we're just taking care of certain things in the routing, because we had to go to Hera for the Moon Pearl so that we can move around Dark World, much the same we're going there for essential items, we're coming here just so that way we can get the Titan's Mitt and unlock pretty much everything else that we need in order to continue along this run.
But Ninnies, what if I pick up the Power Glove when I head to Desert Palace, or whatever it's called? Desert Palace, yeah.
Well, that's pretty unfortunate, because I believe how the game works is that it will override your Titan's Mitt with Power Glove, and you won't be able to lift certain things that you need.
That is very true. Luckily, there are only 2 situations in this route where we actually need to have the Titan's Mitts. So we'll see Chex up here in the attic of... Attic? Yeah, sure, why not? Of Thieves Town, throwing a bomb and destroying the infrastructure for no apparent reason. Totally don't worry about that.
Reason why runners do that. I believe we do it just because it's a huge meme in the community, and we just really like blowing up.
I mean, here's the thing. We're all social distancing. A lot of us have been stuck inside. You just need a little more light. He's just trying to help. Scrump, we will get to that in about 50 minutes, I promise you. So another thing that, since we're going into Thieves Town earlier than intended, again, like we had in Palace of Darkness, and opposite of what we had in Tower of Hera, Mountain Tower, we are underpowered. We do not have the strength upgrades, the equipment that we need. So a lot of these enemies that we would normally just mow right through are enemies that would now take numerous hits, including these Zaziks that we see both our runners fighting on either side. We also had a room that normally with our first level strength upgrade we would have picked up a boulder, walked right through, but because we didn't have one, the developers decided to give us a roundabout way by killing all the enemies in that room. But now we have a strength upgrade on Chex's side, so we don't have to worry about that.
Another thing that we don't have to worry about is the damage on this boss. So
yeah,
as you saw with like Helmet Sword, we couldn't slash sword with the Fighter Sword. What's great about Blind in particular is that each phase that Blind has needs to take up to 3 damage. Everything that hits it does 1 damage to it. So it doesn't matter what we hit it with, Cane of Samaria, Hammer, Burnicane, whatever you can throw at it, it's going to take 1 of each for each phase. So you can still do... if anybody's familiar with this fight, it's pretty scripted as long as you can do it exactly like how Chexhuman is pretty much setting it up. Just
I'm
with
very
setting
upset
up these
about it.
lines and the pokes, and you can make a really clean fight. What makes this fight harder is if there is, in any rate, a death here. Blind is not so nice to you on the comeback.
So, to those of you who thought that we were memeing about this attic room, notice that Chex is standing in a room with a skylight. That room is the same room that Kyong is blowing the hole in. The whole thing is that Blind pretends to be the maiden who's captured. Link attempts to save her. She gets into the light and she's like, actually, I'm Blind the thief. So you murder a man and save a maiden. There are some pretty stressful portions of this run. To me, always Skullwoods. For me, who has only learned 1/3 of Blind properly, and I still can't do it half the time. You know, it's still Blind. But these 2 runners are going through it beautifully. Chex, again, decides to blow up a building because he has no respect for architecture. But he gets 300 rupees out of it, heads south, and now this is going to look very similar to an 80% route, except for one thing that he's doing right now. He's using a mirror, and he's like, oh hey, I'm in a library. Gets a nice little book off of this shelf. Normally this book is used to get into Desert Palace, but we don't need no stinking book for that.
It's actually kind of interesting for all the clips that we're doing in this game to get into dungeons, to get around the overworld. We still can't clip to get ether, so that way we can get into mire. And we still just, we need a power upgrade.
Yeah.
So we have to do a little bit of shopping and movement here. The money is so that way we can get the temper sword, but it's more importantly so that way we can get the flippers that allow us to swim, which will allow us literally to complete Swamp Palace. And then, like you said before, the book leads us to the Ether Tablet, which allows us to get into Mire.
Absolutely. Ooh, taking a little damage on this script fight, but I think Kyong's still gonna pull it off. He's still on script. He makes it. Just wanted to make
the second phase goes down anywhere to the left or the right third of that light, you can generally still follow the script pretty safely. If you practice this fight and you can get at least the first two phases pretty consistently, the third phase is really tricky.
Yeah.
So looking over at Chex's screen, gets the fence dash.
Ooh, that's nice. That's it. His run is valid now. He got fence dash. Fence dash is a very important trick. Saves about 20 minutes, probably. Give or take. I'm just
20 imaginary minutes.
Let me live my life. I can't do fence dash yet. Which is sad, because it's literally... I mean, fence dash is just one of those things, friends. He is heading up towards Skull Woods, which is another stressful dungeon. If you played this one casually, don't worry, we're cutting out a lot of it. First thing, this is the second worst room in the game. Luckily, in all dungeons, we never see the first worst room. Oh, but that mummy is me. Oh my gosh, they're such jerks.
Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, Chex just left a little bit of room in there for them to squeeze on.
What jerks? I'm not a fan of them. Yeah, they can bully you like that, and that is why this is the second worst room in the game. The first worst room in the game, I will point out how you're not going to see it when we get there. And then you can feel free to disagree on me on why I'm right, but... so we see him heading back into the second worst room in the game. Oh wait, actually no, my brain just did a dumb. He's actually going to do another almost pixel perfect bomb jump to head up and get this fire rod, and then take some intentional damage to save us from getting attacked by this mean old Ropa in Dark World before heading back to that area that we started dungeon. He avoids it, heading to the left and on through to try and make it to the major part of the dungeon. Skullwoods is one of those dungeons where everything is not really attached. It's all there, but it's not. And because of that bomb jump that we saw Chexhuman do, we can really skip out on a lot of the dungeon.
Yeah, there's some dungeons that literally all we're going in for it in this category is just for a big key and maybe one or two small keys. And this is literally just coming in for a big key, and we get the small keys that we need as we need them along the way.
Mm-hmm. We saw a really nice mummy Heckway from him to get through, light those torches, blasted out that last mummy too to get the key, and now he falls down this hole and gets to fight another one of my least favorite bosses, Mothula. And I don't think Mothula would be too bad. Mothula's rough on... Oh my gosh, did you see how fast this was? That wasn't fair. Like, I died there.
A little bit of practice. He got the best RNG for that with it, which is a north-south floor movement.
So, just for those of you who are like me, the floor is a conveyor belt. There are basically sentient little Pokeboys who are going to come at you. And that moth does fireballs and sometimes just doesn't take damage because everyone hates it. So, you know, naturally, Chex just decided to go through it without any problems.
Very happy to see. The thing that sucks about it is that anytime that you knock the moth into the spikes, the spikes It's interesting how they work. The game is coded to kind of give them the same amount of damage that the gold sword would do. So in this particular version of the game, if you try to fight Mothula with the gold sword, slashes or spins with the tempered sword will do no damage to it. So what we need to do is we can do pokes or slashes with the tempered sword here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to aim them so that way we hit Mothula either to an open space where there's no spikes or against one of those little tiles in the cardinal directions. So that's what Chex was doing little poke dashes, doing controlled damage into Mothula so that way it would kind of direct where he needed it to, which would be to stay up on that tile.
Yeah, exactly right. And then we did another save and quit, head up to Tower of Hera, just jump right on up there and get Ether Tablet. And now we are heading to a place very close to the Death Mountain, Zora's Domain, which is nowhere near Death Mountain. Luckily, like Ninnies was saying earlier, since all the maps for the caves and the dungeons are loaded in the same way, the overworld maps are also loaded on the same 2D frame. Because of that, we can do a little clip like we just saw Chexhuman do, head down to Zora's Domain, walk right in. It's a little blockier than normal, because the game is still trying to basically load Death Mountain over top. But the cool thing about that is, with that blocky texture, it gives us a better idea of where we can actually run and stand. So, she's blocky, but she's good.
So Kyong had a little bit of a rougher fight. The problem with Mothula is that the longer that fight goes on, the more of those little spikes are going to kind of continuously go around the floor. And the problem with the conveyor belt is that it doesn't just load in doing one direction. As the fight also progresses, it's going to shift going east, west, north, south. And when you're adjusting to hit the boss, dodging the fireballs like we talked about, and then also trying to get up close to the boss, it makes it just one weird cluster of just bad news.
Mm-hmm. Now Chex is going to head towards the mire area by using this nice little bomb clip. Teleports him up, allows him to jump a little bit. Again, not necessary, but saves you a few seconds. You could just as easily walk around. What is necessary is this little buffered boot clip that he just did to teleport himself into the mire area. Now, normally, the only way to access the mire area is by using the flute. We did not get the flute. We will never get the flute in this category. And so we have to buffer in there. Because the game doesn't expect us to go in that way, we have a bit of a grapple error regarding loading the rain state, which we easily get rid of by just mirroring the Desert Palace. And just like some of the other dungeons that we've had, because we're going in a different way, we can basically go in through the side of Desert Palace and not really have to worry about anything. We cut out a little bit of the dungeon, get done as much as we need to get done, and we get out of there.
Yeah, there's only there's 3 dungeons that we're going to do this to, where we basically really kind of bring the length of the entire dungeon to practically nothing. The first of those is going to be Desert Palace, but in the Mire split, we're going to do my favorite series of clips, and it will look really wacky, but I promise you we're going to do our best to explain what's going on.
I am glad you said that, because every other person I've commentated with has been like, no, you're wrong, it's stupid. I'm like, guys, you were the ones who found this, but we will get there, I promise.
It's very near and dear to my heart because, short story, when I went to AGDQ 3 years ago, Josh was the one that taught me how to do this category, and before we had the bomb clip, or to get into this, I had to do sword buffers to do this clip. So, yeah, I spent a good hour in that practice room just learning how to sword buffer into the left corner. Fun times.
God. Yeah, I have always been arguing, since I've been commentating on this category, that for the audience, that the Mire clip is one of the coolest parts of the... It's so interesting to watch because it's so weird what's actually happening. But for a runner, I can see how it can be very frustrating. Reluctantly. So we see Chex going up against Landmolus, and from an any percent NMG perspective, thanks Apathy Duck for not calling me stupid, but the shoe fits. Chex just fire rotted right through Landmolus. In an any percent run, Landmolus is one of the more difficult bosses to beat because of the RNG. The 3 worms, they spawn in the same place every first round, and then after that they can spawn anywhere and in any direction. Because we have the fire rod, we can take just a few shots, make quick work of them, and they don't even have time to think before they're dead. We don't have to worry about their RNG pop. So don't blink, because you'll miss it. So Chex is using that Ether Medallion to get himself into Misery Mire, doing a fun little bonk strat to get into the basement there. Coastler, you blinked. Don't worry, we're going to see it in just a second on Kyong's side of the screen.
God, that room looks so good when it's done that way. That nice one cycle of being able to take care of all the whiz robes and
you mean you don't just stand at the bottom and spam sword beams? Because that's what I do. No, it looks freaking sweet when you're doing Mire 2. We'll see them do it actually twice in this run, I believe.
Oh yeah, Mire Revisit 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I'm glad you said that, because I approve very much. So we saw one differentiation between this route and the no major glitches any percent route already, in that Chex has decided to get 2 keys in that first key room, and in the room he just left, he decided not to hit that switch because he doesn't need it. We're going to do a lot of revisiting in this, but it's going to hit quickly because we are going to leave Misery Mire to go to Swamp Palace by way of Tower of Hera. Now, if you know the geometry of Hyrule at least as well as I do, or if not better, you'll know that those 3 dungeons are not quite near each other. But if we were to look at the Hyrule Underground 2D dungeon map, everything is very close by. So we're going to see him drop down here in this hole, grab this big old key, love his life, and head back around for another loop.
So it's interesting. So by being in one dungeon and by having the big key here, we can use that big key in any dungeon that we get access to. So that's what's going to make it possible, and the reason why we're going to be heading over to Swamp Palace, because we're going to be getting 2 dungeon items in one visit. We're going to get the hookshot from Swamp Palace, and then when we come back here, we're going to get the Cane of Samaria, both using the Misery Mire big key.
Yep.
What's great about that is that it sets, by getting the key here, it doesn't care what dungeon we're in as long as we have the key, and so since we clipped into that dungeon, it's going to allow us to use it.
Yeah, part of it is...
Chexhuman here setting up a bomb clip. That one is super easy to do as soon as you get the timing for it, and now we are in Hera. But we're not quite done just yet. So we need to get from Hera to Swamp. So utilizing another corner here, we're going to place a bomb, and then we're going to get clipped into the corner, get within the correct pixel. Ooh, almost had it there. The bonk was probably what popped him out here. But fear not, there's plenty of backup strats here.
Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on the bomb count in this. Ooh, popped out again. Keep an eye on the bomb count in this route, but it gets a little difficult. It's very carefully crafted.
There we go. Nice clip in the swamp here.
So also by going in this direction and filling the water and passing through with the hook shot, we're actually cutting out about half of the dungeon on the left-hand side. We will never have to go there. Makes this dungeon a lot more tolerable, and it's one of my favorite dungeons, so it's even better. So he mirrors in Swamp and ends up back in Mire. Time for, as you so affectionately put it, Mire 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, what's great about the mirroring is that since we set the dungeon ID to Mire, even though we clipped into all of those different dungeons, the game still believes that we are in Mire. So when we mirror, we're completely fine with where we are. Keon was trying to set up a newer bomb clip. Cuts out a little bit of time here. Unfortunately, Keon didn't get that to get us to show it off. But yeah, so you might think, okay, well, if we just clipped 4 different dungeons, or clipped into 3 different dungeons totally, and then mirrored back, like, doesn't that break the game? And what's crazy is just how this game is programmed and how we can get so far from where we started and then just get right back to where we need to be.
It really
shows how well this game holds up.
Absolutely, and it really, in the end, kind of ends up being about the dungeon ID, since we entered through Misery Mire's proper entrance, or a possible entrance to Misery Mire. The game's like, hey, we're in Misery Mire. End of story. I did notice Chexhuman just spawning a Samaria block and throwing it into the void. Is there any reason that you could explain that? Or is it just for fun?
No, it's very specific. So Chexhuman is setting up something that is called the spooky action glitch. The reason why it is called that is because we're going to be utilizing the fire rod to hit a switch that is completely separate from us. And wow, very, very nicely done. And hits it again. Oh, I didn't even know that you could do that.
Yeah, that one's very interesting.
But yeah, so different categories have different setups for it. NMG, the dock after you fly to Mire, is the one that sets it up, sets the position for you. Unfortunately, in all dungeons, we don't get the room that follows right after that setup, but we can still kind of save a little bit of time by hitting that switch and avoiding the use of a bomb. Anders was talking about bombs being routed in this category. Bombs are the most important thing. They're used for so many things, from clips to bomb jumps, all the setups, and of course always to progress along where we need to go in this game. So every runner kind of has backup strats where they need to get bombs, where they can find bombs. Often, even if it's a time loss and they're behind, if an enemy drops bombs, you'll probably see them run off and go pick them up. Much like how arrows are in NMG, bombs are to AD.
Absolutely. Sorry, I had to clutch my pearls again today, with Chex finishing off that boss with 1 heart remaining, which I'm sure is just to give us a good show. No other reasons there. But
yeah, you know. I was going to talk about it. I'm glad. I'll talk about it a little bit after Kyong gets past it, because I don't want to say anything about what could happen in Mire.
Oh yeah, I'm with you.
But Chex is showing off another clip here. Since we don't have the flute to get in to Mire, we also don't have the flute to get out of Mire. Now we can save and quit and get out of there, and then just utilize the teleportation outside of Link's house to get down here normal. But I mean, that's a little bit slow. So we're gonna clip and we're going to get over to here the swamp area. We still have to drain the lake in order to get into it, but like you said before, since we already flicked that switch while we were clipping in Mire, we don't have to drain Swamp Palace, so it is going to be super, super fast.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So what I was going to say about Misery Mire is that Misery Mire is one of the dungeons that in the Dark World, every dungeon has a corresponding Light World dungeon to it, that if you die in it, it checks to see if it's been completed already. I don't know what Mire is. I'm pretty sure somebody in chat will let us know. But if you die in Mire, you have to exit Mire, and then you have to mirror. But when you mirror, it's going to keep you in the Dark World. So what's weird about that is I talked about fake Dark World, Palace of Darkness. So since we never entered Mire the correct way and the corresponding dungeon hasn't been completed, we have to mirror if we die in Mire. Same thing with Thieves Town. Chexhuman very quickly showing off Diver Down, name pending. It's one of the newer clips that we're finding out in this category. It was found a couple of months ago, along with what we call Icebreaker, which will be in the next split. It's a couple of clips that utilize the Cane of Samaria in order to allow us to kind of buffer or clip over rails and even big thick walls like we'll see in the next dungeon. So it saves a couple of seconds and it looks really cool when doing it.
Walls are just a suggestion. You never have to use walls.
Yeah, there's a difference in between what allows us to clip for Diver Down and what allows us to clip for Icebreaker. Mm-hmm. Icebreaker is a little bit unique because it allows us to use the door state, and we're finding all kinds of different usages for door states. Some of them are practical, some of them are just fun.
Yeah, quick shout out to Yuzuhara, who has contributed so much, especially in the realm of glitches, to the A Link to the Past community, including Icebreaker and Diver Down. I almost called it Double Down, like KFC sandwich that got discontinued. So that's where I am now.
And rightfully so.
Gosh. I didn't even see. Did Chex go for the 0 cycle on Argus? I think he usually does. Both of them typically do. But I may have missed it. We'll see what Kyong decides to go for.
Yeah, 0 Circle Argus is pretty tough to complete. Even some of the top runners will have a little bit of difficulty from time to time.
Absolutely. Now is where I kind of freak out a little bit. This mirror wrap that we're about to see Chex attempt is a little stressful. Yes, Bedsores. So he did attempt the 0 cycle. So that mirror wrap that he did unlocks the camera. Oh, pardon me. Unlocks the camera, allows us to basically wrap around to the Ice Palace location a little bit easier. Otherwise, we would have to use the Titan's Mitts, which we do have, but this is a little bit faster. If he were to have stood a little bit too high, that is a hard lock, and it would cause him to do a hard reset to get back to the last save and quit point, which I believe was for desert? Or in the middle of desert? Either way, it's about 15 minutes time lost. Chex doing the Icebreaker glitch to walk through walls, because walls are just a suggestion in video games. In real life, they are not a suggestion. Do not try to walk through walls.
Also, I want to point out how insanely fast that was.
Yep.
Didn't even utilize a buffer to go back to the hammer. So, I mean...
I told you, these are two glitchy boys. They
all
love their
kinds of
glitches.
movement. So basically what we're trying to do is we're walking into the room, we're moving 1 pixel to the left, and then we're buffering a downright movement so that way we can place a Samaria block and keep the door state, which will allow us to pass through that wall.
I see that Apathy has given me a clip by Mutsky, which is horrifying to see in the real world. Shoutouts to Mutsky at Mutsky SRL on Twitter. View that at your own discretion. Chex going for a nice cold stare fight right now. And he makes it through. Unfortunately, Kyong attempting this clip out, having a little bit of trouble, but looks like we're making the mirror wrap. Also accidentally seemed to spawn that bee, which can be a little discouraging at some points, but he makes it. Still a little. There we are. Oh, I had to just keep talking there, and the words were just coming out. It was like a bit of word vomit because I was so afraid.
Yeah, Kyong had me worried. When I saw, when I saw it, Kyong jump into the water, I was like, "Oh no!" I was so worried because like, there's a lot that can go wrong trying to set that.
It's a scary mood, but he made it. So normally in the any percent no major glitches route, we would have to do a bomb jump. Of the bomb jumps that we have, including the Tower of Hera bomb jump that we saw, the Skull Woods bomb jump that we saw, I personally believe that the Ice Palace bomb jump is one of the hardest. I would call it the hardest of those. And just by minding our own business and finding out diver down in these RMG categories, we can just completely ignore that. What did he just do?
He clipped into the ice rod cave without using a bomb.
So, you can do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different techniques for entering that room. You can do it normally by throwing a bomb. You can do a clip on the screen below, or you can do that.
Yeah, of course. So he save and quits to get back up to our favorite dungeon that we've seen over and over again, Tower of Hera. Because now we have to get to Turtle Rock. He's going to do a fun little clip here that's going to look like Link is just spinning 360s around this mountain. See? Like, it's so weird. And that allows him to basically wrap around and get into this cave, which normally we would not be able to get into. Since this cave is not normally open, Chex has to open it with a bomb, taking some intentional damage to get laser skip. And that is now our main entrance to Turtle Rock. We can now go through the dungeon backwards, make our way through to get the big key, which is the only thing that we need in this dungeon at this point. This little elevator ride looks very difficult, especially backwards. Key strat, press up.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Turtle Rock is the item that is in Turtle Rock is often never picked up. So every dungeon has an item for it that is useful for the run. For this particular run, and also for NMG, the mirror shield is what is inside Turtle Rock. So it's really only useful for the laser bridge, but we already got everything that we needed out of the laser bridge for this run, which is just getting that one small key in the bottom chest. So we don't really need it here.
Similarly, Ice Palace, we don't get the item there, though it is viable in this category because of Ice. So Chex becomes a bunny, decides he's not a bunny anymore, gets this big key, and instead of going all the way back, he just mirrors. I want you guys to keep it up in that noggin of yours that we did not go through the intended door. Okay? Don't forget, because it's going to come back. And while we think about that, I want to mention that the worst room in the game is in this dungeon. It is the Chain Chomps room. You're in a room with 2 Chain Chomps, and you have to move some blocks and hit some crystal switches, and it's very stressful.
So did you happen to see the method that Kyong used to pick up the item?
Yeah, with the weird Invisobomb?
Yeah, so what that is that's another broken camera. We're essentially moving... We're on the right screen for that room, but we're clipping far below it, and we're landing on the water. that clip can be a little bit dangerous just because you can try to put a bomb down and the bomb will just never spawn and you have to save and quit out of it. There's a backup strat that you can clip much like the way that Chexhuman did, but the trouble with that clip is that you have to clip facing down and then you have to use a different setup for it. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit weird. Beautiful mirror wrap by Kyong here.
Now I want you to. What did I tell you guys to remember? What did I tell you? Who was listening to me? I don't know why you would be, but who did it? Told you guys. Remember, we did not go through the intended entrance of our good friend Turtle Rock. In the vanilla intended way, we are. Thank you, Bedsores. Bedsores is on my good list right now. We did not go in through the intended way. Normally, you have to use the Quake Medallion, which we did not get, to go through this Turtle Face door. And we can't. So we have to save and quit. That's another one of the other places where if we did not have save and quit, we would not be able to complete this category. So because we're trying to get to Ganon's Tower, we're going to do a very similar clip to what we were doing earlier to go into Tower of Hera, but instead of actually walking into Tower of Hera, we're going to walk over to that mirror dark portal. Using the same kind of strategy, we are breaking the camera, walking our way into Ganon's Tower. Because of this, not only can we get into Ganon's Tower, but we're also able to skip through that long 7 crystal spinny cutscene. Chex opts to take the torch key, which is one of 3 keys. You have to get one of these 3 keys. That is not the fastest, but the safest. And it's not the slowest either, so I don't know why anyone would get the 3rd one. But to each his own. Kyong heading over towards Trinex. Oh, come on. So, Trinex is a enemy with, you guessed it, 3 necks. 2 elemental heads can be destroyed with the Ice Rod and the Fire Rod, the Ice Rod being one of the unitaskers that we have in this run. We only use it here. Another would be the Book of Majora, which we only use to get the Ether Medallion, which we only use to get inside of Misery Mire. Check's picking up some extra arrows for this next fight. A good move. This is a familiar enemy. If you've been with us from the beginning, this is the Ice Armos. They are Armos, but on ice. What a concept.
Yeah, Ganon's Tower is a little bit weird. We basically get a nice little encore of the 3 original Light World bosses. We have the Armos Knights, and then we will have the Lenmolus, and then we will have Moldorm at the very end. Fun note, Moldorm is optional if you know how to hover.
I hope, honestly, if there was a day for them to do that, it would be today. These 2 runners know each other. They know that they're both going into the bracketed stage. But if they don't, no worries. We're getting into some fun little mimics rooms. These mimics can either be clipped out or only destroyed by arrows. Check's having to do a few extra buffers in there because they just didn't want to cooperate properly. But getting through it pretty easily in the second room as Kyong makes his Dark Mountain DMA up towards the Ganon's Tower. So we will see here if Kyong decides to go for the torch key. Kyong decides to go for the torch key. It's my favorite key. As Chex enters into what we call the Gauntlet of Ganon's Tower. 5 rooms where you have to kill all the killable enemies under varying circumstances. The Zazuks and the mummies and the Stalf... Well, no mummies. Zazuks and Stalfos. Ooh, an unfortunate miss of that fire rod shot twice. Not the best RNG in this room, but makes through.
Yeah, the rooms in the Gauntlet just progressively get worse and worse. Not mainly by enemies, just by mechanics. So, as you saw, the rooms got progressively more icy, they got movie, they added more BMOs and more of these little guys like in the bottom corner here that are just shooting little fireballs.
But he gets into land mode 2 still alright, and though he did miss the the 0 cycle, I guess is what you call it in this case, or 1 cycle, I don't know, he didn't get it first try on land mode 2, still makes it through wonderfully into this room that looks a lot swaggier than it is. You put down a Stamaria block, kill 3 enemies, and I think it looks super cool. Imagine having favorite keys. You know, I do have favorite keys. This one also looks cool. You turn left, but it still looks cool. See how Kyong does with these Armos Knights. Ice Armos. Another least favorite room in the game for me. This Torches room looks a lot easier than it is. Great, very, very nice Ice Armos fight from Kyong. Kyong opting to take some extra arrows as well.
Yeah. You need at least 4 arrows if you're really confident on taking care of the first mimics, and you can pick up some arrows in the second one, but most will opt to have at least 8. If you have silvers, you only need 4.
Yeah, silvers is one of the optional strats that you can do earlier on in the game, right before you do the Kiki Yeet. Silver arrows make, specifically, I guess you could say that they make Helmasaur King easier, but they also really do help with Ganon in the time save portion of it. But both runners opted not to do that. Chex makes it through Moldorm 2. And it's heading. One of the things about this run is that all the RNG is really at the end. So we're going to go into our first of RNG bosses, Aghanim 2, in which Aghanim the Wizard summons 2 imposter illusions. All 3 of them throw balls at you, some of which are reflectable, or sometimes the real Aghanim will throw non-reflectable balls, but you have to get 6 hits on him. He just misses the 2 cycle there, and the 3 cycle. It's a frustrating moment. But this is basically Geometry the game. And he gets through on the 4th cycle.
Yeah, Aghanim 2 is one of the rare sequences where the sequel is actually better than the original. The best part about Aghanim 2 is that the clones will always shoot the orbs, so you can at very least always get 2 hits on Aghanim, and you only need 6 in order to progress it to get through the fight. We're going to be going into the worst part of the game, which is Aga Tower. The game classifies it as a dungeon, so we have to do it because this run is called All Dungeons. The great thing about it is that all the time saves that you can have and lose are pretty much the second to last split of the game. So
yeah, but both runners are just kind of running through it, doing very well. Now, typically you'd just be able to jump down that hole after Aga 2, but we can do that, like you said. If you were to do that, you would have to save and quit out of Ganon, which is just annoying. This dark maze giving Chex a little bit of bat stress, but he makes it through.
The great thing about Aga Tower, though, and probably its only one redeeming factor, is that in a normal run of this game, you would go from Ganon's Tower straight into the Ganon fight with however much health and magic you had left over. The best thing about Aga Tower is that when you complete it, not only will we be in front of the hole that allows us to get into Ganon, but our health and our magic will be filled to give us the best chance at taking down this guy.
Absolutely. So now Chex entering Foreman's basement to get his, I think, final key. Swerve's favorite key is the key to your heart. Isn't that cute? Let's see how Kyong does on this Aga2 fight. Can't
Almost
quite
a triple
clinch the
there.
3 cycle, but... Alright, 4 cycles on both sides. We get to see Chex heading into Aghanim 1 on this side, while Kyong gets through to Aga Tower proper. Now, Aghanim 1 is, again, RNG. First shot, always reflectable. 6 shots to hit to kill him. Every other shot is 50-50, 1 blue ball. 50-50 blue balls, which are non-reflectable. Every 4th phase is, or after every 4th phase is a lightning shot that you can do nothing to. He is currently at 2 blue balls. The maximum number is 15 if you hit exclamation point BB%. That will give you a list up to 15, 3 being the most common, 0 being the preferred, and other than that, you know, we're just doing our best to make it through. If anyone does get 15 throughout the course of the run, thank you, Bad Source, for the BB%. If anyone does get 15 throughout the course of the run, M. Kosler will be buying me dinner, so do not let him forget. If no one gets it, then it doesn't matter. Chex makes it through Aga 1.
So it looks like Kyung is having a little bit of an adventure through here. A lot of fire rod shots, but we don't have to worry about magic as before. We're gonna get a nice little magic refill.
Yeah, that free refill. Chex drops down the bat hole. Ooh, little bullying by this blue knight on Kyong's side, but he makes it. So Aghanim is dead on Chex's side. We don't need to worry about Aghanim. But Ganon, this evil blue pig, has 4 different phases. The first of which is him throwing his trident, which we are already out of. Chex taking some unfortunate damage from Ganon in that second section where he has the fire bats. And the third, he warps around, warps a random, and you have to hit him 4 times to get him to destroy part of his home, I guess. And then the last segment is an all-around fun time of keeping torches lit and avoiding fire bats. So we see Chex lighting that left torch before the right one goes out. By doing that, we achieve torch lit, which means that the right torch will never go out. There's a light and it never goes out. Seeing how Kyong's side of things are going with our blue ball friend Aghanim. And Chex blows up Pig. Save anything catastrophic happening, he will walk through with a victory in this category for Group N.
Very nice. Chexhuman finishing with a official SRL time of 1:13:46.
See if we can get him in for a quick little interview while Kyong finishes up against the king of RMG himself. Ooh, and he gets him.
All right, looks like we're going to get Chex in here to talk about his run. And hopefully we'll have Kyong come in shortly after.
Absolutely. So between Aga and Ganon, we have this fun little smashing. Oop, I heard a ding dong. That means we are joined by Mr. Chexhuman. GG Chex.
GG Chex.
Maybe? Can he hear us?
He is muted. He can hear us. He is muted though.
Well.
Okay, I unmuted all of the things.
Hi Chex, GG.
GG's.
So how you feeling?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Ups and downs and more downs.
I saw some little frustration at the end of that Aga 2 fight.
Sure. Yeah, I was late adjusting my position and then let it get away from me.
Yeah, but that we are getting a little bit of love in the chat from your pot spin speed thingy that I don't know the technical term of.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, always a fan favorite. Were you watching along with us as you played?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so you kind of knew where you were throughout. Did that affect how you played at all? Do you feel, or were you just kind of in your own zone?
It didn't affect my decisions too much. I just want to play safe during the tourney more so than I would during practice runs, so not too much was different.
Alright. Ooh, looks like we have a pig blowing up on Kyong's side. Always a good thing for just around Easter time if that's what you're into. Kyong will be finishing with an official SRL time of 1:16:39. So, Chex, we're heading to brackets after this. Is that correct? You're all done with your group matches?
Yeah, I think our group is done.
I think so too. I mean, this is my third Kyong match to commentate, so I would assume, but you never know. Literally only one match left, Apathy Duck says, in the groups. So that's the thing. You excited?
Yeah. I hope to put out more 113s. That's fine.
Yeah.
113 was my sort of level going into the tournament. So if I can remain consistent, that's that's a good thing.
And with that beep, we are joined with Kyong. GG Kyong.
Thank you. GG's Chex.
GG's.
So how are you feeling?
I mean, I said before the race that this would either be my fastest or my slowest time, and that was true, so not super unexpected. Just that it was the kind of run that every little thing ended up happening poorly, but it happens.
But you had some good plays in there too. Really good. I see a gold in there compared to some of your best on this split set, so obviously there was some good coming in from it, and still a very nice.
There is something that I wanted to ask Chex. What was kind of going on in the Herida Swamp clip with the dash? Was that just like an accidental press?
Herida Swamp.
Oh yeah, in the clip in Misery Mire to get to Hera, then to get to Swamp Palace for after you bash that mini mole out, had a little trouble getting that sword clip from the bomb.
So yeah, it took something like 3 tries. I don't remember. All I know is that the first 2 were no good.
See, now I feel really bad about asking about it. The only thing I was trying to think of is like, maybe you're having your sword out so that way if it pokes, you can poke buffer it. So that way you can poke, get the Moldrum away from you and get you enough time so that way you can buffer the input in. That's what I was thinking that you were probably doing, but I didn't want to assume.
Honestly, with both...
I'll have to go back. I can't... I didn't think about how I could have improved that because it just felt like a mess. So,
and honestly,
yeah.
with both Chex and Kyong, I kind of have seen them both play enough to know that if something weird is going on, they're probably doing it on purpose. So I can always point it out because they do some things that I don't understand. But so you're both heading into the bracket, which is super exciting. And so GG's all around. Niz, do you have anything else to ask?
What's your favorite cereal?
Cereal?
Crisp Eggs.
This seems like an odd choice, Chex. Kyong,
That's the first one I thought of.
That's good. That's a good one. I will say that it's National Burrito Day for those of you who are still before midnight on April 2nd. So I hope you've had a good burrito.
Thank you.
But I think that's just about it from us. Unless we have any more cereal really. Kyong, we didn't get your cereal response.
I don't actually know in English, but it's
No
pretty
worries.
much nothing special. I haven't had cereal in like over a decade,
That's fair.
probably.
Well, there you have it. Niz, thank you for commentating. Runners, thank you guys so much for giving us such a great show.
Thank you, Anders, for commentating with me, and thank you, ZeldaSpeedRuns, for hosting this tournament for me.
Absolutely. And follow these runners, friends. They do some good stuff.
Yeah, thanks to you both.